human capacity for evil is a dark and complex subject. We often construct a preconceived image of a predator, a specific archetype that allows us to create a sense of distance, a comfort that such darkness is recognizable and foreign. But history, and the chilling realities of the modern era, relentlessly shatter this illusion. They reveal a far more terrifying truth. That evil often wears a familiar face. It can be the face of a nurturing caregiver, a devoted mother, a compassionate nurse, or a charming socialite. It is the face of someone cloaked in a position of inherent trust, the last person you would ever suspect, who precisely uses that trust as their most effective weapon. Today, we are delving into the profoundly disturbing stories of 10 such women. These are female predators who specifically targeted the most vulnerable among us, children. Their methods varied, from hands-on violence to sophisticated manipulation. But their common thread is the ultimate betrayal of a sacred duty of care. Their stories force us to confront uncomfortable questions about nature, nurture, and the very nature of evil itself. We begin with 5 figures whose names have become etched into history. First, Gertrude Banishevsky. In 1965, Indianapolis, she was a struggling mother paid to care for 16-year-old Sylvia Likens and her sister. But within those walls, a profound darkness festered. Banishevsky wasn't a caregiver who snapped. She was a mastermind of cruelty. She systematically orchestrated months of torture and psychological abuse. What makes her case so chilling is how she enlisted her own children and neighborhood youths, creating a microcosm of a cult where she was the despotic leader. She perverted the normalcy of a neighborhood and the inherent trust placed in a parental figure. Sylvia wasn't kidnapped by a stranger. She was slowly, methodically destroyed by the very person paid to keep her safe. Next, we have Myra Hindley. As part of the Moors murderers with Ian Brady in the 1960s England, Hindley's role was uniquely critical. In that era, a young woman represented safety. Hindley weaponized this perception. She was the friendly face that lured children and teenagers to a van where Brady was waiting. Her involvement was the key that unlocked the entire horrific sequence. But she was far more than a lure. She was an active, enthusiastic participant in the torture and murder of at least 5 young people. Myra Hindley shattered the comforting stereotype of female nonviolence, proving that cruelty and predatory behavior know no gender. Her face became an enduring image of pure, calculated malice. Our third case is Mary Beth Tinning. Between 1972 and 1985, this New York mother murdered 9 of her own biological children. Each death was initially explained away as a tragic case of sudden infant death syndrome. For over a decade, she exploited the ultimate bond of trust that between a mother and her child to commit serial murder. Her case is a classic example of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, where a caregiver seeks sympathy and attention by orchestrating the very tragedies they claim to mourn. Her predation was a slow, silent poison hidden behind a mask of maternal devotion. From a betrayer of motherhood to a betrayer of a sacred oath, we come to Beverly Allett. In 1991, in a British hospital, Allett was a nurse, an angel of death. She preyed upon her pediatric patients, injecting them with lethal doses of insulin and potassium. She murdered 4 children and attacked many more. She used her position as a healer to become a killer, creating medical crises to satisfy her twisted desire for attention and the excitement of the emergency response. She sought to be the hero, a role she could only play by first being the villain. And finally, Juanetta Hoyt. Like Tinning, Hoyt smothered her 5 infant children to death between 1965 and 1971. But her predation had a far-reaching consequence. For over 2 decades, her lies misled the medical community. Her false testimony convinced doctors that SIDS could run in families, an erroneous belief that caused immense guilt for countless parents. Hoyt's violence not only stole her children's lives, but also perverted scientific understanding for a generation. Her confession in 1994 was a correction to medical science itself. These historical cases are chilling, but this evil is not confined to the past. The modern era has produced its own monsters. A prime example is Ghislaine Maxwell. The daughter of a British media tycoon, Maxwell was a woman of immense privilege and social power. She used that status to become the central facilitator in Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring. She systematically groomed and recruited vulnerable underage girls, using her charm and authority to gain their trust before delivering them into a nightmare of abuse. She represents the modern, sophisticated predator who operates not in the shadows, but in the glittering world of the elite, using psychological grooming as her primary weapon. In a case that stunned the world with its bizarre and tragic dimensions, we have Lori Vallow Daybell. Driven by doomsday cult beliefs and a desire for a new life, Vallow murdered her 2 youngest children, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. She exploited her role as their mother, not just to kill them, but to conceal their deaths, lying about their whereabouts for months. Her story is a terrifying modern parable of how extreme ideology can twist a parent into a predator, demonstrating a chilling detachment from reality and maternal instinct. Sometimes, the predator is not the direct hand of violence, but the enabling force that allows it to happen. This was the case in the murder of Jessica Lunsford in 2005. While John Coey was convicted of her abduction, rape and murder, his sister, Maddie Secord, and her daughter, Cherokee Hall, knew Coey had brought Jessica to their trailer. They knew, and they did nothing to help her. By their silence and inaction, they became accomplices to the predation and ultimate murder of a helpless 9-year-old girl. Their case is a brutal reminder that evil thrives through passive allowance. On a broader, more systematic scale, we have the facilitators of the Rotherham grooming gangs in England. Between 1997 and 2013, hundreds of children were exploited. Key to this operation were female predators who were used to recruit vulnerable teenage girls. These women would befriend them, gain their trust, offer them drugs and alcohol, and then hand them over to gangs of abusers. They were the friendly, relatable face that masked a truly monstrous intent, making them some of the most insidious and effective predators in modern criminal history. And finally, we have Tiffany Moss. In a modern case of pure, unadulterated cruelty, Moss and her husband starved and tortured her 10-year-old stepdaughter, Imani Moss. Moss actively participated in the prolonged abuse and neglect that ended with Imani's body being burned. She was convicted in 2019. Moss represents the evil that can fester behind closed doors, the step-parent who was meant to provide love and safety, but instead delivered a slow and agonizing death, revealing a depth of depravity that is almost incomprehensible. The stories of these 10 women are a grim but necessary reminder. Predation does not have a single gender, and evil does not have a single face. It can be the face of a mother, a nurse, a socialite, or a friend. It is the face of someone who has been trusted with our most precious and vulnerable. Understanding this uncomfortable truth is the first step in vigilance, in protecting the innocent, and in ensuring that such profound betrayals of trust are never allowed to happen in the shadows again. By staring into this darkness, we strengthen our resolve to never allow it to go unseen. Like and subscribe for more content like this.